Today, we'll be going over how to get started with Synapse, our open source governance and semantic layer. Before we start, let's quickly go over what is a governance and a semantic layer. The governance layer ensures that your users have access to the specific data that they should have access to, meaning people from accounting should only see accounting data, people from sales should only see their data. The semantic layer makes sure that even though these different departments may have their own data sets, they could all talk and communicate with each other as needed. So if you have a reporting team that does some of the reporting to management, they can have access to both your sales metrics and your accounting data to make sure that customers are both being converted and actually following through on their invoices. So those are governance and semantic layers. Let's see how Synapse helps you handle those. Let's start by onboarding some local databases that we have. In this case, we're going to go with some SQLite examples, but as you see, we also support PostgreSQL for types of databases. Now we're going to add a user to our database. This ensures that each user that is created and added uses their own specific user rights to the database rather than just general approval rights. So each user could only see what they're meant to see, and you could distribute these rights by user. Rather than having to give all users access to all connections, you could give users access to specific tables, making only connections to the tables that they would need to have and attribute user connections to those tables only. For backwards compatibility, we added the option for you to upload local files. So if you upload things like Excel and CSV files, it will not only be able to add them onto a system, it will actually create a database for them so that you could keep them stored and organized going forward. As we see, we do have the option to add dictionary keys to make sure that as you add new data tables, they could all be correlated to each other. But considering we haven't added anything to our dictionary database, we can't yet add any connection from these tables that we've just added to the dictionary key. So we'll be doing that later on. Now you have the button to just go click and you can see the data from this CSV file, which is now in a data table in the SQLite database that we've connected. So going forward, as this file gets updated, the data will automatically be added to the database. Now that we've added both a database and a local file, let's try to add some APIs. Each API connection is going to come with its own username and password and or API key to ensure that each user has access to the connection that they should have and are using it through their own access rights. So let's see how this will work. For this example, we're going to be doing a connection to an API key for the FinHub IO. This also includes some header information, which will include with keys that will then be converted into the values as we submit this function. As you see, our connection is now being added with a function. Certain APIs will have multiple functions that you can use. So we'll be able to connect each API connection to one or more functions and then pre-save both the functions itself as well as input values for those functions. And we'll see that later on. So right now we're adding the function to get the stock data. And as you see down there, you see that it's functioning and getting stock data, but we could also run it through the user interface. And as you see, it now returns the data through the FinHub.io API. So now we're going to go ahead and add another API just to give you an example. This is the SEC.gov API for us to get some company data using the CIK. So we've added the API connection. Now let's add a specific function that gets this CIK information for each company. We're going to add an example of what the input should look like and what the output would expectedly look like. And we're going to add the API that we've just added, and we're going to test this. It does give us the option again to add the dictionary keys, but because we haven't added that yet, we're going to skip it for now. But as you see, this can help us get the company information that we would want based on the CIK. Now let's see how we could start building our dictionary so that these different data sets can be connected to each other, so that if you have company information from one database or one data source, that can be correlated to company information from another database in our data source. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is adding two things, both the ticker and the CIK values, as both of these should be unique identifiers for each company. And as you remember earlier, we added a local file. This file had the list of unique identifiers for both the CIK and the tickers side by side, so that we can now connect these two tables and see for each CIK what the ticker is and vice versa. This will allow us to cross-reference the data that either has tickers and or CIKs to identify the correlated tables and data sets. The dashboard to see what that looks like. See how we can add saved values so that we don't have to always know the tickers that we want. We can have a list of the ones that we usually use. Let's see how we can add Apple, for example, into our saved values list and see how this would work. Now, because the ticker values are interchangeable across multiple functions, once we add a saved value, we then can assign it to multiple functions. So let's see what are the functions we can assign this value to here. First, we're going to assign it to FinHub.io, and as you see in our dashboard, it gets added there. We have it, and let's test it out, see if it works, and there you go. You could get the data from the saved input now. Let's add it to the other list, see what we could get. As you see, it's been added to the other list as well. Let's see what that looks like. See that it gets us the values that we would want from that mapping table, which is the CIK number if you give it the ticker, and the ticker if you give it the CIK. Now, an added bonus that we've added to Synapse when we connect it to Daemon is that you can take this data that you've gathered from your saved inputs and send it to your AI model so that it could give you some responses and/or feedback for the information you've gotten. Let's see how that works. So as you see, we've gotten the saved input data over here for Apple, which should get both their CIK and the ticker data as we've connected both of those. Let's see what the AI has to say about that. As you see here, the information that we've gotten says that we can see the FinHub data, which is the pricing information. And then at the bottom here, we see the CIK data, which is the second data source that we've added. So that's how Synapse can help you both govern and maintain control over your data, giving people access to it when they need it and ensuring that people can change the things they aren't supposed to have access to. On top of this, once you connect it with Daemon under our Axiom tool, you can give AI secured and covered access to all your data without risking anything going wrong. This is how Synapse can help your company grow and improve. You can find Synapse for free in our GitHub. You can download and start using it today. It is a free and open source tool. Make sure to like and subscribe to keep learning more and stay ahead of the innovation curve. Thank you.